Hi you guys, welcome to my book channel. I am so happy that you're here. My name is Ashley and I'm going to be posting all things reading, books, anything you can think of book related, and I am so excited to have you here. So for my first video on this channel, I thought it would be cool to just go through all of the books that I've ever rated 5 stars just so you can kind of get to know my book taste a little bit. So earlier today I went through my bookshelf and I picked up every single book that I have ever rated 5 stars, and we're going to go through them. I'm going to decide whether or not I think they would still be 5 stars. So beginning off with, I think, the books that got most of us into reading. I have some Colleen Hoover books. I have more Colleen Hoover books on my shelf, but I'm pretty sure these are the only ones that I ever rated 5 stars. So starting off with, of course, It Ends With Us. This was one of the first books I ever read that got me back into reading. This was the first romance book that I had ever read, and honestly, all of her books, I don't really remember the plot or anything. I just remember that this obviously deals with romance but also physical abuse in relationships, and obviously now there's a movie about it and it's become this big thing all over TikTok. Do I think that this would hold as 5 stars? No, if I'm being honest, I just don't. When you start off reading and you don't have much to compare books to, you're obviously going to rate more things super highly, but then once you kind of read more and your standards grow a little bit and you kind of learn what you like and what you don't, obviously you're not going to rate things as highly because you have more to compare it to. So I do not think that this would hold up. Now moving on to Ugly Love. Again, same thing. This would definitely not be 5 stars. I think probably even less than It Ends With Us. This is a brother's best friend romance, and there's a huge emotional side to it. It's dual POV, and yeah, again, I just don't think that these, I'm thinking that these would probably sit around 3 stars. 3-4 stars, just not 5 stars for sure. Now this one's a little different. This one is a little different, and I am so picky about my thrillers now because I've just read some really good ones to where now they really have to be really good for me to rate thrillers highly. But we have Verity here, and I really think that if I were to read this today, it would still remain 5 stars. I think that there's some things that I would really dislike about it, but I think that overall it would remain 5 stars. The shock factor of certain things and just the plot twist were just so insane, and I think everybody needs to read this. I know Colleen Hoover is super controversial now, but I do think that this is such a good book, and again, just the plot twists are freaking crazy and you really don't even know, even at the end in the epilogue, you still don't know who to trust. You don't know what's, you're left confused even in the epilogue. Okay, so now we're moving on to Heartbones. Heartbones I feel would be a high 4 stars. I just feel I really liked this one. I think that there's a lot, again, I literally can't remember really much about this. I just know that it takes place over summer and I'm pretty sure it's young adult. I don't know if I liked the plot twist that much, but I still rated it 5 stars. I think that this would not hold up as 5 stars. I think it would be closer to a 4. And then we have November 9th, which I again do not think would still be 5 stars, but I just remember the 2 main characters, they meet on the same day every year on November 9th, and that's all I remember. That's literally all I remember. I read these 3 years ago, so they're not really sticking up here. I just remember there was a huge plot twist that, I don't know. Okay, and then I actually don't own this one, but at the time when I was reading her books, this one was my favorite. It's Regretting You. I really liked it, and it was now, again, definitely would not hold 5 stars. Even the idea of it, I'm not loving when I'm talking about it. So it's dual POV, and it's from a mom and a daughter's perspective, and the dad, the mom's husband, and the mom's sister, I think it was, they get into a car accident, and then it becomes apparent that they were having an affair or whatever, and then so now the mom and her sister's husband, they're trying to so you're getting that little romance thing, but then also on the side you're getting the daughter and her new boyfriend's perspective. You're also getting the mother-daughter relationship. I think I just really liked the mother-daughter relationship and that whole thing, but again, obviously would not stand at 5 stars. So now that we're done with our Colleen Hoover portion of this video, let's get to the actual really good books. And I just want to say, if you do like Colleen Hoover books or any book, whatever, I'm not judging whatsoever. Your book taste is your book taste. I'm just giving my opinions opinions and my ratings and how I feel about these books now, but no judgment whatsoever. Your book taste is completely your own and I respect all opinions. So now we have Daisy Jones and the Six, and I think about this book so much, like all the time. I think about this book. It's following a band in the late 60s through like interview style, so it like the whole, like I'll try to show you, but like the whole book is just set up in like this interview style, but it's like it flows so well. I just remember loving this book. It's emotional, it's just real. I don't know, it's just like the characters go through a lot and you just get a lot from these characters. And I literally thought that this was a real band. After I read this, I was like looking online for like 20 minutes trying to find the band, because Taylor Jenkins Reid made them seem so real that I was convinced that they were real, like literally convinced, and I had to do my research to figure out that they are in fact fictional. But it's so freaking good. I would highly recommend this. This actually sits at like a 6-star rating for me. I have definitely considered rereading this at some point. And then we have One True Loves, also by Taylor Jenkins Reid. I read this earlier this year and I just loved it. I think that being that it is like a recent read for me, I am still going to keep it at 5 stars. So you have the main character Emma, who marries her high school sweetheart Jesse, and they're having their little life together, whatever, and then Jesse goes missing and he's presumed dead in a helicopter crash. And so you're living through her grief, and then the years following that of her like going through grief and then like learning to live with the grief and sort of moving on. Then she begins a relationship with someone she knew from her childhood. They get engaged, whatever, and then she gets a call that Jesse is found alive. You get like the kind of like the love triangle, which I hate love triangles so much. It's done in such a good real way where it's just I can't even describe it. It's such a good life lesson book. I feel like I just think that this is such a good book and I would highly recommend this one as well. So now I have Better Than the Movies, which I also read at the beginning of this year. I read it in like May or something, so it honestly hasn't even been that long. I would obviously still rate this 5 stars. This is a young adult book, by the way, so it's very like rom-com-esque. Literally feels like you're watching a rom-com. And so basically you have Liz, who is obsessed with romantic comedies, and she's like obsessed with trying to find like a love like in the movies that she watches. And so she like tries to find this person she's had a crush on for a long time, but like he turns out not to be her fairy tale ending that she's like hoping for, and it turns out to be like an enemies to lovers cute little, it's just so freaking cute and I just love this. It's so sweet. Okay, so now we're moving on to the When in Rome little duology. It's about to be a trilogy and I'm so excited. It comes out in January. I cannot wait for the next book in this series. This overall is a 5-star series, the 2 of them together, but separately they are also 5 stars for me. They are closed door romances, which means that there's no spice whatsoever, so it's simply just like emotional connections, which is exactly what I look for in romance books. Also, can you tell that these are the first books that I ever annotated? There's like look how bad that is, look how that's crazy. But I actually read this one first, but if you're trying to go in order, you read When in Rome and then Practice Makes Perfect. So When in Rome follows Ray Rose, who's a pop star, super famous, and her car ends up breaking down in Noah Walker's front yard. Noah lives in a super small town. It's giving like Gilmore Girls, like super small town. Everyone knows each other. Everyone has known each other since they've been like babies sort of thing. But it's very much Grumpy Sunshine, and they obviously start falling for each other, and it's just like, it's very, I don't know, it's so sweet and actually really funny. There's a lot of like real life references in here. So then we have Practice Makes Perfect, which follows Amelia, who is Ray Rose in the first one. I didn't really say that, but her actual name is Amelia. It follows her bodyguard and then Noah from When in Rome, his little sister. So you got like a fake dating trope in here, and again, it's closed door. It's perfect. It's so sweet and so funny. As you can tell, I ate this up, and there's like Friends references in here, Taylor Swift references, just really funny stuff. Like I was just like going to town with these tabs, obviously. So freaking good, so good. I'm literally so excited for the 3rd one. I can't even tell you. Okay, so now moving on to a book that I read again like 3 years ago, which is The Love Hypothesis. I remember loving this book. I think this is the first book that I ever annotated, but when I say annotated, I mean I just put a little highlight thing. And why would I do that? I'm really confused about why I was highlighting these certain things, because like what did that even mean? My favorite color? Okay, black, I guess. Figures. What's wrong with black? It's not even a color. It's no colors technically. Why did I highlight that? So this is like a STEM romance. Ali Hazelwood mostly does STEM romances. And so it's like grumpy sunshine plus fake dating trope. I don't remember much about this. It's been so long since I read it. I have recently read more of her books, like her STEM books. I've read all of them and they sit around like a 4-star for me. So I just am going to assume that this would also sit around 4-star for me, just because I just feel like I wouldn't love it as much as I did back then when I had very little to compare it to. Okay, this has been the best book that I have read all year. I love this book so much and I desperately want to reread this. I think about it on a daily, which is Just for the Summer by Abby Jimenez, which was actually my first book by Abby Jimenez that I had ever read. And so basically it follows Emma and Justin. They both have this like curse on them. They think it's a curse. They joke about it being a curse because every time they date someone, as soon as they break up with that person goes off to find their soulmate. And it happens to both of them with every relationship that they have, so they call it like a curse that they have on both of them. So anyways, they meet online and Emma is a traveling nurse, so she ends up moving temporarily to where Justin is located, and they decide to make this pact where they'll date for however long, and then as soon as they break up, both of them will then go off to find their soulmates. They're trying to help each other out through this curse. But at the same time, Emma is going through a really hard like relationship with her mom. Her mom's like not a good person, and then Justin is soon going to be full-time guardian for his 3 little siblings. It's such like, it's so funny. It like, I literally like was laughing out loud at certain parts of this. It's so good. I can't even explain it, but it's just so real and just has like such a good like beautiful like real life aspect to it, and it's so good. It is so freaking good. I love this so much. So obviously this would remain at 5 stars, but it's like a 6-star read for me. Okay, so before I read It Ends With Us, before I read any of the Colleen Hoover books, I mean I've always been a reader since I was like a little girl, just not to like the extreme of what I am now. But before I started getting into Colleen Hoover and all of this, I was reading Stephen King. So the first 2 books that I read from him were Thinner and Misery, and I just remember loving this so freaking much. Like as you can see, it's literally like torn to shreds. Like I abused this book, but I loved it so much, and honestly I don't know if it would remain 5 stars. I feel like it would. I just feel like Stephen King is just so freaking good. I just don't know if the idea would like stay at a 5-star. So basically Billy Halleck, is that how you say his name? Billy Halleck, he is involved in a vehicular manslaughter, and he ends up killing this woman. He gets away with it, like he doesn't get any sort of punishment or anything. And so the father, I think, of the lady that he killed puts a curse on him where he starts losing so much weight, like rapidly losing so much weight, hence Thinner. So then it's just following him trying to reverse what happened to him. And again, like I don't see how that could remain, I don't see how that could remain 5 stars just based on the idea, but who knows, maybe it would. I'm just thinking like around 4 to 5 stars. That's where I'm thinking that this would withhold. And then we have Misery, and this, so good, so freaking good. I think that this is probably one of his most popular books, as it should be. It follows this author, Paul Sheldon, and he meets his biggest fan, but his biggest fan is Psycho. So she keeps him locked in her house and forces him to write a book just for her. And so you're basically just seeing a psychopath. Literally she is crazy. It's such a cozy read too. Like it takes place in the winter, so it's very like cozy, but it's just so thrilling, and you're kind of just like, oh my god, like what is going to happen? This girl is freaking insane. So I think that this would absolutely remain 5 stars. And now moving on to 11/22/63. Can you tell I love this book? I love this one so freaking much. So this follows Jake, who's just a teacher in his town, and he goes to this diner where the diner owner is like, hey, I gotta show you something. And he takes Jake into the back of the diner and he tells him, okay, go walk in this closet. And Jake does, and then he ends up in 1960, not me not knowing, 1950, I think it's like 1958. I think that that's where it takes him, and basically the diner owner tells Jake that he needs to go back in time and stop the assassination of John F. Kennedy because he's convinced that it'll save the world and make everything so much better if the JFK assassination never happened. It's just so freaking good. Like, it follows, you see Lee Harvey Oswald. There's a romance that actually is like a huge part of this book that is so emotional, literally will probably make you cry at the end of it because you just get so invested. And I won't say anything more, but I love this book so much. It's like my 6-star read. I think this will always remain a 6-star read for me. Okay, so now that we have The Villa, which was a very surprising read for me at the beginning of this year. I randomly checked it out at the library because it was available now. I had never heard anything about this or anything, so I went in very blind. The perfect description that I could give you guys is it is a perfect mix between The White Lotus and Daisy Jones and the Sick. Perfect combination of the two. It's following two different timelines. We have the 1974 timeline where it's following this band from the 70s, and then the now timeline, which is following two best friends who are writers. In 1974, this band stays at this villa and there ends up being a tragic death. The death is like deemed as an accident, but when these two best friends, Chess and Emily, go to stay in this house, Emily starts to like pick up on some things and she kind of thinks maybe it wasn't an accident, and so she decides to write a book on it. It's just so good, and it's set in Italy. It's like the perfect summer story. These two things are like two of my top contents ever, so like a combination of them, are you kidding? And honestly, like, I've heard a lot of mixed reviews on this. I went on TikTok after I finished this book, as I do usually when I finish books, any book. There were a lot of mixed reviews. A lot of people don't like this, which is very, very shocking to me, but I do understand because it's very slow and I could just see how people couldn't like it, I guess. I actually rated this a 4.5 stars when I read it, but I've recently bumped it up to 5 stars because, again, I just think about it constantly, and so it's just a 5-star for me. Okay, so moving on to A Good Girl's Guide to Murder series. There's 3 in the series, but I just didn't feel like holding all 3 of them up. So first we have A Good Girl's Guide to Murder, and then the second one is Good Girl Gone Bad, and then the third one is As Good as Dead. So in the first one we have Pip, who decides to uncover this murder that happened in her town a few years ago, and she is doing her like senior project on it. And so she is uncovering this murder that happened because she doesn't think that the guy who was framed for killing his girlfriend actually killed his girlfriend. She doesn't think that he was the one who did it. So she's uncovering it, and you're going through the whole mystery. She's interviewing people. She's trying to basically just solve this murder, and it's so good, so freaking good. I loved this when I first read it. I read this again like 3 years ago. The second one for me was like 4 stars. It just wasn't as good, but then the third one is also 5 stars. And I honestly can't really tell you much about like what this book is about because it would spoil a lot of stuff, but it's basically Pip and Ravi trying to cover up their own murder. So these are just so good. I think that this series will always remain 5 stars. I will always recommend this series because I just think it's so good, and it's young adult, so it's very easy to get into and read, and it's just so good. Yeah. Okay, so next we have The Silent Patient, and I read this again like 2 years ago, and so it's basically following Alicia, who has this great life. Everything is going great until one night she shoots her husband 5 times in the face, and ever since then she has remained silent, and now she's in the psychiatric unit, again refusing to speak about anything, so no one really knows what happened. Obviously she's in this psychiatric unit because obviously she's a little, you know. But then we have this criminal psychotherapist, Theo, who is determined to get the story and have Alicia speak. But the plot twist in this was absolutely phenomenal. I just remember like being shocked, like, so it's just so crazy the way that this ended. I think that this would remain 5 stars. My mom recently read it and she loved it. Again, 5 stars from her. Again, the plot twist was just so crazy that I think that this would remain 5 stars. And now we have Fourth Wing. This is actually the first fantasy book that I have read besides Percy Jackson, and I read a couple of the Harry Potter books. This is the first fantasy book that I have read in my adult life. So it's kind of like with the Colleen Hoover books, but I don't have much to compare it to. So honestly, in a couple years, maybe this won't be 5 stars for me, but at the time I read it, and still now, I think that this is totally 5 stars. Okay, sorry for the angle change, my camera just died, but like I was saying, I don't know if this would hold up in a few years, but as of now, it does. You are following Violet, who has trained to be a scribe her whole life, but her mom is forcing her to become a writer. And so she is going to this new school, which I just think was such an interesting and good plot. It's like basically at this school for writers, and all of these writers have to bond to a dragon. But the thing is, the dragon picks you. There are so many cadets, very little dragons, and you're following Violet, who is not cut out to be a writer. Why did I forget what happens in this book? Why did I literally forget? I read it like a year ago and I already forgot. Please go look up a summary about what this book is about. This is so good. I would highly recommend. I know it got so much hype all over TikTok when it first came out, rightfully so. As someone who has not read a lot of fantasy and doesn't have a lot to compare it to, I think that this book is absolutely worth the hype, and I would definitely recommend this. The third one comes out in January. I'm so freaking excited. But yeah, this is just really, really good. It's like giving like Harry Potter, but like with dragons, no wizards obviously. It's just really, really good. I would highly recommend Fourth Wing, and this does remain 5 stars for me. And now moving on to the last book, save the best for last. I have The Housemaid by Frida McFadden. Again, I know that this book blew up on TikTok, so it's like it's gotten a lot of hype, but it deserves every little bit of hype that it's gotten. This is my favorite book of all time. You're basically following Millie, who is an ex-con. You don't know at first why, you kind of learn it as you go on, but she's an ex-con. She just got out of prison like recently, and so she's living in her car. She's trying to find a job, and she gets hired as a housemaid for this really rich family, the Winchesters, and she's like, okay, why did I get hired by these super rich people? Like, there's no way they didn't do a background check on me or anything. But of course she's grateful. She's just a little skeptical of like why she got hired. So Millie goes to be this housemaid for the Winchesters, which is Nina and Andrew Winchester, and Nina is making her do like these cleanings and cooking, whatever. But Nina starts acting really strange, blaming stuff on Millie that was like clearly her, and just like acting like really, really crazy. Millie is like, okay, why would someone as nice and like amazing as Andrew Winchester marry someone like Nina? And then it just gets so crazy. The plot twists in this book are just so insane. I can't even like, oh my god. I actually reread this over the summer. I've now read this twice, so this remains a 6-star read for me. I love this book so freaking much, and this is honestly what I compare all thrillers to now, and why I haven't rated another thriller 5 stars since I read this one. Just so freaking good, so amazing. I would highly recommend this book to anyone. I got my mom to read it, I got my friend Jordan to read it, and they both loved it. So good. This deserves all the hype in the world. So with that being said, that is all of the books that I have ever rated 5 stars. Obviously my opinions and book taste have changed over the years. I'm older now, I've experienced more things, I've learned what I like and what I dislike in books, but overall these are some really, really amazing books that I would highly, highly recommend. And this is a little dive into my book taste and a little bit of what you'll see, kind of what you'll see me reading on this channel. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Make sure to subscribe, and I hope that you'll stick around. I have some really exciting reading vlogs and other sit down videos for you guys, so I hope that you'll subscribe, and I hope to see you next week for another video. Bye guys.